Welcome to the Let's Eat Grandma Job Seekers Podcast.
Hey, this is Chris from Let's Eat Grandma. This is the LEG Job Seekers Podcast. We have a very special episode, and it's just me. We have no guests. And what we did is we went to reddit.com and we answered the best of the resume questions that we could possibly find. So yes, we dug deep into the internet. Just a fun fact, we are here in Let's Eat Grandma headquarters, aka Capital Factory here in Austin, Texas. We had Alexis Ohanian, who is one of the co-founders of Reddit, come in and speak here. So I think it's very fitting. I'm very inspired to give this podcast today. One thing that Alexis said is that he wanted to do everything he could to make the world suck less. I think Reddit is a great example of that. I know that when I'm personally going on Reddit, I'm looking for some serious answers because it really is such an amazing community of people, community of sharks, if you will. People are hungry for knowledge. So what we did here is we went in and we found the best questions we possibly could here in June 2018 for resumes. What we're going to do is we're going to answer 5 to 6 questions here as a Q&A. It's going to be, how would I put this? We're going to make the names anonymous, even though I'm sure the people, the users, don't really care too much. So we went ahead and made up names. Bear with us here. Some of these names are ridiculous. But without further ado, here we go. These are the best resume questions of Reddit. All right. Here we go. Jackalope25 says, what is the ideal length of a resume? This is a very common question that I get anyway when I'm answering emails is how long should a resume be? There's a misconception that every single resume should be 1 page, and that's really not the case. And I think this is really bad advice. The answer is the resume is as long as it needs to be. Plain and simple. So I always tell people find the amount of relevant experience for the job postings that they're applying for and include it on the resume. If they have, if 5 or 6 or 7 of their professional experiences are relevant for that job posting, then absolutely include it. I think it's important. However, if you have 1 or 2 experiences that are relevant, then I would include those. So, if, for instance, you are, a student who's had, 5 years of experience and you just got out of college not too long ago and you have a limited list of skills, your resume is probably going to be 1 page. However, if you are an experienced executive and who has tons of experience within their field, they're probably going to have a resume that's going to lean towards 2, maybe 3 pages. I try not to steer to 3 pages just because I think often a lot of that can be communicated within 2 pages and a lot can be cut. So that's a very good question. I like to bury the hatchet with that, and I hope other resume writers are preaching the same thing. All right. All I do is win 14 says, what is the best font to use in a resume? That's a really good question. So you have to think the font should be as easy to read as possible. There's no font in particular that is going to be like your golden answer, the absolute font that you need to use in a resume. However, just consider this. When somebody's reading your resume, on average, they're going to spend about 6 seconds, guys. 6 seconds per resume. And at the end of the day, you want to do everything you possibly can with your design. And so we're talking your formatting tools, we're talking about your font choice, we're talking about all the spaces in between your resume. You're going to want to do everything you possibly can to make it as easy to read as possible. So when it comes to font, don't choose wingdings or anything that's an exaggeration, of course, but anything that's like tough to read, no cursive, and just choose the most simple font possible and you should be fine. I'll be honest here. I'm going to confess, I love Times New Roman. I think it's totally fine. I've used Arial, I've used Garamond, I've used all of these that are really simple. And I think when it comes down to it, it should be your brand. So using a font that you commonly use, we're getting a little artsy and a little bit esoteric here, but you get the point here. for a list of fonts, we're actually going to be posting out a blog and pretty shortly about different fonts to use. So we're going to address that exact question in more detail. All right. Nina Pinta says, how do you address a gap in work history? That is a very good question. So I would say it depends on where the gap is in your history. A lot of times we will have professionals who are going back to the workforce after, for instance, taking care of a child or taking care of a loved one who's been sick. So in that case, if the gap is recent, then you want to do two things. The first thing you want to do is you want to show that you are being active in some sort of capacity with your job. So for instance, we had a client who had been out of work for about 5 or 6 months, which really isn't the longest gap, but she wanted to address it. So what we did was we showcased that she was actually studying to take her PMP, which for a lot of you who don't know, to be certified as a project manager actually it's a pretty daunting task, because to even apply and to be able to take the test is a lot. So we were able to showcase that person was in the process of getting their PMP. And we were able to do this kind of in the beginning of the resume. So any recruiter who was concerned about any sort of gap was able to see that. Thing number 2, and I'm a fan of cover letters, guys. I know a lot of you guys who like to crap on cover letters, and for good reason. I mean, oftentimes people write canned cover letters, but at the end of the day, they can be used to address gaps. They can be used to address potential, reservations that a recruiter may have about you. So I would say, just to summarize everything, make sure you show you're active. And thing number 2, address it in the cover letter. You're going to be fine. Okay. Big Money 12 says, do you need 2 completely different resumes if you're applying to jobs in different industries? Yes and no. So it depends on if the industries are uniquely different. I would say focus more on the core competencies that the job postings are calling for. So what I like to do is create 2 different buckets here. And a lot of you I know, especially the smart people on Reddit, are concerned about keywords. So what I recommend doing is looking at your different job postings and seeing if there are different core competencies in each one of them that are uniquely different. If they are uniquely different, if you are coming up with a completely separate list, then you do need to come up with 2 resumes at the end of the day, because you're going to want to be more tailored and targeted. Now, in terms of industries, I think it depends on the industry. So I don't think there's this one-size-fits-all answer. In fact, a lot of industries are very similar. But look to the job posting. If the job posting clearly says, like, I want to see your sales background experience, or I want to see your computer programming experience. So I think that needs to be addressed in the resume. So at the end of the day, what you're going to want to do is create 2 different buckets, 2 different categories, and address those 2 things. And if they are uniquely different, you need 2 different resumes. And I think, a lot of people try to come up with like a million different resumes for different jobs. I think that's overkill. But at the end of the day, just look at those core competencies and see if they're different. Alejandro Hustles says, how important are references on a resume? I think that's a waste of space. And I say that because just your resume is a resume at the end of the day, and you want to make sure that your professional experiences are kind of the number one thing that you're highlighting here. However, I do think each professional, especially if you've been working for a while, should have a list of references on hand to either show if somebody's asked for it, or they should just, I think, even if somebody doesn't ask for it, it might actually help you in that case to say, hey, these are a list of people you can call, you can contact, they can all vouch for me. And so I'd say that could make you stand out as a candidate, and I think that's extra special. Don't say, and I mean this, don't say list of references available upon request. I just think that's lazy, because why not actually just attach it as a separate document? And I think it's just a waste of space at the end of the day. You have way too many things that you're trying to showcase anyway. All right. This is our final question, and this comes from Jake95. Should a cover letter be included in every job application? Let me think about that for a second. Should a cover letter be included in every job application? So I am leaning more on the side of yes, because a cover letter at the end of the day is going to help you. However, there is a caveat to that, and that's make sure the cover letter is not canned, guys. Make sure it's not just a copy and paste of every other cover letter you've sent, because that might actually hurt you. Because people might perceive it as lazy. But I would say if you can actually custom tailor it to the company you're applying for the actual job posting, then that's going to help you at the end of the day, guys. And I even recommend, unless the job posting says don't post a cover letter, I recommend including a cover letter in as many times as you possibly can. Because for me, when I know that when I receive a resume that has a nice cover letter attached to it, I can see that this is somebody who's proactive. This is somebody that took the time out of their day to figure out, why they would be a match for the position in the first place, and why they're going to be a good fit for that company. So to the people that crap on cover letters, I completely understand why you're doing it, because most are canned. A lot of recruiters like to skip over them. But at the end of the day, guys, a cover letter can really help you, especially if you have things to address, like reservations that people might have. You can nip those in the bud, or just show that you are an overall amazing candidate. I know that I pay extra attention to those applications that have cover letters in them. So overall, I'm really amazed at these questions here on Reddit. I think Reddit was a really great opportunity to find questions coming from intelligent people who were looking to go out and strive in the job application. So I'd like to thank all these individuals who asked these questions. We're going to try to make sure that you get the answers to these by posting this on Reddit. Hopefully Reddit doesn't ban us from threads and thinking that we're advertising. No, we just want to make the internet suck less. So shout out to that. But anyway, thank you for all of these amazing questions, and hopefully I answered them. And if you do have any further questions, you can always email me at chris@letseatgrandma.com. You always have that available to you guys. So I want to thank you all. Thank you for listening to the Leg Job Seekers podcast. This was a short and sweet one, and hopefully we got some questions answered that all of you guys probably had. Thanks, and that's a wrap.
This podcast is powered by Let's Eat Grandma Resume Services, where I'm an owner/investor. So there's an old joke behind the name Let's Eat Grandma saying that if you take the comma out of Let's Eat Grandma, you would like to eat your grandmother, versus including the comma, it means a completely different thing. It's that you would like to eat with your grandmother. So do not forget those commas. They can save lives, and we are firm believers in the power of punctuation. Let's Eat Grandma's helped in the past 3 years hundreds and hundreds of clients in all different industries land better positions. The company actually rewrites your resume, LinkedIn profile, cover letter, you name it, to increase your chances of landing that coveted position. Let's Eat Grandma has existed for about 3 years, and they have a handful of reviews that really have impressed me over the time. The first one being, I don't know if you remember me, but I am the little old lady that needed help with a resume when Phoenix Beverage was bought out and I needed to hit the unemployment line. Success has been achieved. I start on the 26th of this month with TriTech Communications. They have 3 offices in Maryland, Boston, and New York. I got my foot in the door, now watch me go. Jonathan from New York says, if you're looking for an honest company that truly does what they say, this is the company you want to work with. I went from getting no calls at all to landing my dream job. Within the first few days, I heard back from a company I've been trying to get in touch with for almost 2 years. Thank you so much for all your help. So check out Let's Eat Grandma if you are looking to get your resume revamped. For listening to this podcast, you can get 10% off your first order. Just go to letseatgrandma.com, order any one of the main 3 packages. So that's the starter package, accelerated package, and premium package, and enter the code podcast when checking out.